And now for something completely different.
Yeah, hello again everybody, and welcome back to Fugit's Blitz. Now, this is a different type of video to the ones that I normally do. Normally I focus on a little tank game, thrown in with a bit of history and a little bit of modelling. But I've had an itch now for quite a while that I just haven't been able to scratch.
Nothing is worse than having an itch you can never scratch.
Couple of things before we crack on. Firstly, you will see that, well, I'm basically going to have to rerun lots of different clips of lots of different things because this video could get struck down for copyright because Disney, who now own Star Wars, are, well, not nice when it comes to stuff like this. But, be that as it may, the other thing is, this is just my opinion, my view, my perception. Now a lot of you are bigger fans, more into it than I am. I get that, I understand that, and you may not agree with me. Well, that's perfectly up to you and perfectly reasonable and feasible. The idea is not to just generally agree with me. The idea is I want to vent my frustration. And that's it. If you don't agree, you don't agree. But I'm venting, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, let's get into it. So, movies, by their very nature, are actually there to entertain us. Many movies allow us to escape into a fantasy environment. They give us a whole range of emotions, sadness, awe, but above all, pleasure. Now, in some instances, they also consume us and become a thing of unbridled love and attention, especially if they are part of a series, and Star Wars is exactly one of those types of franchises. Shakespeare once wrote, "It's better to have loved and lost, never to have loved at all," and in some respects that can actually be correct. Take those who fell in love with the original Star Wars trilogy. Do they hold the same love for the prequels or even the final 3 movies? No, they do not. But had they not fallen in love with the original movies, would these other 6 films be any better? Most likely, no. If you take the final 3 movies purely as a standalone, then ask yourself the question, would they attract the attention that they got? Now, I don't think they would. Disney played fully on the fact that those films were going to garner interest because they had Star Wars in the title. Nothing more. And they played to its immense fan base. A fan base that is not just immense, but also incredibly passionate. With that alone, piggybacking on the success of the original trilogy, they could literally do anything they wanted to. And that was never lost on Disney, because that's exactly what they did. Going back, when I was a mere child of 5, my grandparents went on a little holiday. On their return, they bought me a present. In the UK at that time, the usual type of present was a thing called a stick of rock, a type of candy that was rolled into a long tube made out of pretty colours that not only tasted crap but also had the ability to break your teeth. But no, my grandparents hadn't bought me some rock. Instead, they had bought me 3 little toy figures, which I had no clue about. Now, it so happened that these figures had something to do with some movie that was due to hit the cinema in the summer of 1977. That's right, Star Wars. The figures I were given was Ben Kenobi, C-3PO and Luke Skywalker. Now, at the time I had no idea what these were, no idea how massive these characters were going to be, or how big the film was going to be, and how much of an impact it would make upon my little life, along with the majority of my friends. Eventually, I got to go to the cinema and finally see what these figures related to, and instantly, my lifelong love for Star Wars was born. Now, it's fair to say that Star Wars has a huge impact not only on me, but a great many others. Even as a 5-year-old, the story was simple to understand, the characters easy to define, i.e. who is good, who is bad, and visually it was just blew me away. I was 5 after all. But even now, it still blows me away. I personally even believed the Millennium Falcon actually existed. Not as a spaceship, I'm not that daft, but as something that really flew. Something my poor uncle had to go to great lengths to convince me otherwise. Fast forward to 1980, and I was a little bit older, 8 to be exact, and along came The Empire Strikes Back, hitting the cinemas with massive fanfare, and boy, I was blown away all over again. Star Wars was awesome, but The Empire Strikes Back was in a completely different league. Oh, how the cinema laughed when the Tauntauns came on the screen. How we were all mesmerised by the AT-ATs. And how we all felt that the bounty hunter Boba Fett was a real cool bad guy. We all felt our hearts ripped out when poor old Han was dropped into carbonite. And yeah, we all got the shock of our lives when Vader confessed to being Luke's daddy. Never saw that one coming, must admit. Great movie, still one of my favourites, and still a film that I love to watch. Then in 1983, the final chapter of Star Wars, the original trilogy, hit the cinemas, and we all eagerly got our tickets and rushed to see it. Okay, so Return of the Jedi was rather a damp squid, mainly due to the Ewoks, which even as a mere 11-year-old, they were just annoying. Okay, they were there apparently for the kiddies, but no such thing has been put into the previous films, and they were also for kiddies, were they not? The story of Return of the Jedi is still good, don't get me wrong, it's still entertaining, it's still magical, but it didn't, well, at least not for me, have the same hold over me as the other two. My love for Star Wars, however, didn't diminish because of Return of the Jedi. Okay, I wasn't into the comics and the books and stuff like that, but I did collect the figures and the little spaceships, and I watched the movies over and over and over again. George Lucas then went out onto his crusade to keep tinkering with the originals, adding here, removing there, and in some respects doing utterly needless things, like making poor old Greedo shoot first, which, in fairness, in my opinion, has to be the most idiotic tinker ever done in cinematic history. Idiotic because Greedo is a bounty hunter working for Jabba, and he's clearly rather good at being a bounty hunter because he found Solo. To then imagine he would miss a rather large target sat literally across a really small table is just total nonsense. I mean, how has he managed to survive being a bounty hunter with such crap marksmanship? Not that it needs a marksman to make that shot. I mean, for God's sake, my mother could have made that shot, and she's almost 80, half blind, and has rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah, These weren't the only needless tinkerings, to be fair. The whole adding of aliens and droids, mostly for comic effect, was unnecessary, and it brought nothing to the film whatsoever. A bit like, let's add Jabba and Boba Fett, cause fan base! Eventually the tinkering had to stop, and stop it did. A fair few versions later, and good old George then decided to release the prequels. Now, I freely admit I was all excited about the prequels, and eager to see episode 1, albeit I was now a little older, but I still held the love and the joy the original trilogy gave me. Now, by trade, I'm actually a lawyer, and even I was aghast when I saw the opening crawl in The Phantom Menace. A blockade over trading taxation routes? What the fuck? How on earth is taxation an exciting issue? Well, I suppose if you're an accountant, it's exciting, but I'm not an accountant, and a vast majority of us isn't, so taxation just isn't. It's not interesting, it's not exciting, it's just crap, and I don't care what anyone says. Okay, some in the initial scenes even make no sense, like holding your breath so you don't get gassed. It's pretty cool, like Qui-Gon using his lightsaber to mount blast doors. But it's not exciting, it's just, meh, let's go through the motions. We're then introduced to Jar Jar. Oh my god. Okay, so he is there for the comic stuff and for the kiddies. But did you have to give him such a stupid accent type thing? I mean, talk about stereotypical. I mean, yes, George got away with it then. Would he get away with it now? I doubt that. I mean, Jar Jar's just an awful character, let's be honest. And he brings nothing to the movie other than ridicule. Now, no doubt there are creatures out there in the Star Wars universe that are a bit strange and a bit odd. But this was just too over the top and essentially set up so the entire Gungans weren't to be taken seriously. Did you notice that the poor Gungans were to be used as the cannon fodder at the battle at the end, rather than the Naboo? I wonder why. I mean, Jar Jar could have been a good character, funnily enough, but they made him stupid on purpose. That was just ridiculous. The Phantom Menace, however, did have one saving grace, and that, of course, was Darth Maul, and how little that lasted. Less screen time than most of the extras playing Naboo guards, but he was damn cool, and he looked evil, like a Sith should look, and boy, was he shit hot with that double lightsaber, despite being a little bit of a retard by letting poor old Ben Kenobi chop him in two. Oh well, too much of a good thing, I guess. We were then bombarded with the CGI fest that was Attack of the Clones. Okay, fair enough, Jar Jar had been relegated to the back. But now a stupid love story that had zero chemistry or passion took his place. It was disjointed, ugly, and whoever wrote the dialogue has clearly never experienced the very thing they were writing about. And let's not forget about the time that Anakin fully admits to murdering a shed load of sand people, kiddies and all, and Padme is like, oh, alright, no big deal. What the fuck? I mean, what happened to her compassion all of a sudden? The movie itself isn't overly memorable, aside from everybody being disappointed that Jango Fett's head didn't drop out when Boba picked up his helmet. Aside from that, it's a plodder of a movie. But we do get to see CGI Yoda fight a CGI Dracula. Oh, I miss Darth Maul now. And I just can't imagine my granddaddy pulling off the Maul's Dracula did. We then have the final chapter, Revenge of the Sith, which, to be fair, despite the terrible acting, wasn't that bad, if the truth be known. The interplay between Palpatine and Anakin is pretty good, and it's convincing, and it shows Anakin's descent into the dark side and the manipulations of Palpatine to drag him there. Okay, the final confrontation between Anakin and Ben is awful, what with the wooden acting and the bad dialogue, but it's better than Padme dying because, hang on a minute, how did she die again? Oh, that's right, she just turned herself off, kind of. Well, fair enough. We then have Anakin Vader doing the awful no thing at the end, and it kind of sums up my thoughts. Now, up until this point, I can handle the prequels. They weren't Star Wars per se, but they attempted to be, despite the many stupid things added. Think midi-chlorians. Isn't that something you had to a swimming pool? Oh, maybe. At least they tried to stay on target.
Stay on target.
I hope you got that reference. Then along came Disney, and oh boy, this shit shower was about to begin, and it was never going to stop. Where do you start, and where do I start with the Disney fiasco? Ironically, the very start of The Force Awakens was pretty neat, and I was conned into thinking this was going to be a good movie. But it wasn't really. Okay, yes, it's a copy-paste of Star Wars, A New Hope. You all know that, just with a few differences. But as they say in Thailand, same, but different. It's essentially Star Wars. The Death Star is now Starbase Killer. Old Man Kenobi father figure is now Han. Tatooine is now who the fuck cares. But there's no Vader, not really. I mean, come on, Kylo Ren just doesn't cut it for me. There's no Luke. Sorry, but Rey is far too Mary Sue to even warrant liking the character. Plus, she is so moody and unlikable. Finn had promise, but is totally wasted. BB-8 is fun, and Poe is interesting. That's about it. The film is pretty dull. It goes nowhere fast. and is so full of plot holes, unanswered questions and cliches that it hurts my head. Okay, many argue that books, comics or games answer these questions, but why should I be forced to look for external third-party sources in order for a film to make any sense? The whole idea of the film is to make sense, not to make your head hurt and force you to go out and do a PhD in Star Wars or something. I know Star Wars was never about science fact, but seriously, turning a planet into a huge base that sucks the crap out of the local sun to then blast it like a cannon. I mean, I've seen this before somewhere. Isn't it just a bigger sun gun from James Bond's Man with the Golden Gun? That was equally daft. I mean, what a terrible idea. And totally stupid, really. And don't even get me on the unanswered questions. I mean, Return of the Jedi killed off the Empire and brought peace to the galaxy. Where the fuck did the First Order manage to grow so big so quickly? And I'm still waiting to hear from the Orange Big Eyes thing how she managed to get Luke's Bespin lightsaber.
A good question. For another time.
Sorry, laser sword. Is it just me, or every time that you say laser sword you think Taserface?
You know what would be a really kick-ass name? Taserface!
No idea why. Its biggest fault, however, is selling the false sense of security that the next movies will be any good, because they were far, far from it. Don't get me wrong, The Force Awakens is okay. Not great, but not awful. Whereas The Last Jedi just takes a big, huge dump on everything ever made from 1977 until that movie's release. And I mean literally, and not just the movies. We have all been conned. We've been sold a total lie and been misled since the opening crawl of Star Wars in 1977. Star Wars nowadays is not about good overcoming evil. It's not about redemption. It's not about the underdog getting the better of the powerful. And it's certainly got fuck all to do with the Skywalker line. The previous 6 films, yes 6, were all about the path of Skywalker. The original trilogy was about Luke, how he grew, how he developed, how he turned to eventually save his father and become a Jedi. The prequels were about Anakin, how he grew, how he developed, and how he turned to the dark side out of love. And now we have Rey. Okay, so in the first 2 films we have no idea who she actually is. We're still left hanging, thinking that maybe she's like a love child of Luke's or Ben's or even Yoda. We're not told anything. It's a cliche. It's a cliffhanger. But we are shown that Luke is a grumpy old bloke. He was just a dreadful Jedi. Not only does he try to kill his students, I mean, let's forget about saving his pops in Return of the Jedi, but he also gets his ass kicked by this girl, Rey, who has 0 training, 0 knowledge, 0 charm. But hey, she's Mary Sue, so everything's good. We then roll on to the most boring chase scene ever to hit cinemas in the entire history of cinema. Yep, that's right, super duper spaceships that are running out of fuel and other super duper spaceships that just can't catch them. And they have guns that have very, very limited range, despite seeing earlier one of the smaller ones, a Dreadnought, fire on a fucking planet. And you thought trade taxes were dull. That chase, or lack of, actually drags out for an entire movie's runtime. Wow, talk about excitement. Ships run out of fuel and finally get into the range of the other ships to be blasted. Wow, what an enchanting read that script must have been. Come on, I saw more dramatic chase scenes than Master and Commander, and that involves sailing ships. Yeah, it's a shit film, to be fair, but the worst was yet to come, and that is the rise of Skywalker. Okay, we move from tax issues to lack of fuel, but now we find out that actually the entire Star Wars saga, from prequel to this very last episode, has literally fuck all to do with Skywalker. Nothing to do with good, triumphing over evil, or other lovely heartwarming stuff. I mean, the entire thing is all about Palpatine. It's a total story about being evil and nasty gets you almost everything you ever wanted. How a Star Wars journey is merely as a voyeur into Palpatine's rise. How he gets to power, how he consolidates the power, how he expands that power, and then he doesn't even die.
Young fool. Only now, at the end, do you understand?
Rey is now his granddaughter. Let's not go there. I mean, just such a mental image of Palpatine bonking somebody is just repulsive. Because once you think about it, you can't unthink it. And boy, she's more powerful than anybody who's ever been before her. More powerful than Anakin, the one who was meant to bring balance to the Force, as prophesied. More powerful than Luke, the so-called last Jedi, apparently, according to Ben. Better than Darth Vader, the baddest of badasses. Better than Kylo, who was able to defeat Luke anyway. And clearly better than the Emperor, because she kills him. I mean, what a shower of shit. At this point, I just want to jump into a little bit of canon. Palpatine in episode 3 manages to drag Anakin over to the dark side with the enticement of preventing death. There you go, a la doth Plagueis the Wise. This is done in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And no one, and I mean no one, has the ability to force heal or bring dead peeps back. And this was at a time when the Jedi were at their most powerful. The best they manage is being able to talk to dead peeps, as Yoda explains to Ben. The Jedi are destroyed, and Yoda, the most powerful Jedi of his time, is not able to do a damn thing about it. Anakin, now fully dark-sided with his new master, Palpatine, is also unable to do anything about Padme, the very person he went to the dark side to save from dying, from whatever she dies from. And even the Emperor is unable to help, telling Anakin, together we will find the solution to beating death. Roll on to the original films, and yep, no way to heal anyone with the Force. Just not possible, sorry. And then we have Rey, who just goes around the Rise of Skywalker healing away like some space Jesus. And then Kylo Ren also gets to give it a bash. I mean, how did Kylo Ren learn this ability? Clearly not from Luke, his first Jedi Master, because Luke didn't know. Not from Palpatine, because until this movie, The Rise of Skywalker, nobody knows he even existed. And certainly not from Snoke, because apparently he was a clone created by Palpatine, and therefore he would have the same powers as Palpatine. Although it's interesting to note that a clone created very quickly has awesome dark skills, but let's not go there just yet. Let's save that for another video. Now it seems Kylo got this ability because Rey healed him earlier. So where did Rey get the power from? I mean, fuck me, my head is just throbbing. She's had very limited training from Luke and Leia, neither of whom had this power. But if they did, then allowing so many to die around them, surely that's really dark side shit. Okay, so Rey is the grandchild of Palpatine, but even he doesn't have that power. So how the fuck did she get it? Oh, that's right. Anakin was never the one to bring balance to the Force, thus making the first 6 films a total and complete lie.
Liar!
It's Rey. It's always been Rey. Rey is the one to restore balance, clearly, and she is so filled with the dark side, it's unreal. That was proved in The Last Jedi. Oh, I mean, what utter bullshit this is. We then have the premise of the film to contend with. Palpatine is alive. How? I mean, the Death Star 2 was literally blown to atoms after he was thrown down a long tube thing, and we saw his forced life depicted by a cloud type thing rise up. How is he alive? Well, he isn't alive. He's dead, but he's alive. Oh god, my brain's hurting even more now. If he's dead, then how can he speak and move? Okay, he's limited to a chair thingy-majiggy. I mean, he's clearly not a clone. But Snoke was a clone, and if they managed to perfect him as a clone with all his dark side power that Palpatine had, then why can't they do like they did in Star Trek Deep Space Nine with the Wayoons and just make new Palpatine clones that don't look like zombies? Oh my god, Palpatine survived the unsurvivable. He's alive, but dead, but alive. At this point, my head hurts again too much, so I'm going to leave this part here until my sanity returns and I can continue. Anyway, by all means comment and everything on this video. It's not my normal type of video, so it'll be interesting to see the comments. And until the next time, please don't let your head hurt. And thanks for watching. Catch you all again next time.